Overview of commissioning phases. There are three. Phase 1, preparation, Phase 2, implementation, and Phase 3, closeout. In preparation, we'll be looking at activities to set up the commissioning team, the process of gathering information, selecting the commissioning team, developing a schedule, and developing a budget, creating documentation. The commissioning manager. Learning objective. By completing this module, you should be able to understand the attributes of a commissioning manager, when he or she should be engaged, be able to describe their duties and responsibilities, and define the type of chart used for this purpose. The key attributes of a commissioning manager. To be highly skilled in interface management. This is absolutely key. Have an intimate knowledge of the plant or facility that is to be commissioned. To know in great detail how each system will operate and be controlled. To be a good role model to the commissioning team, and to establish good relations with safety and operations and other key stakeholders on the project. The responsibilities of the commissioning manager typically will be for the scope shown in the completions pyramid, that is to say, all pre-commissioning activities and all dynamic commissioning through to startup, also including normal shutdown and emergency shutdown. In addition, the responsibilities will include developing, hiring, training and leading the commissioning team until final handover to operations. The range of responsibilities will include engaging stakeholders, defining and making clear requirements for people, materials, equipment and access. Participating in and where needed to lead the systemization exercise, design reviews, HAZOPs, studies, management of change, pre-startup safety reviews or PSSRs, and factory acceptance testing. There will also be responsibility for gap analysis of systems and procedures and pertinent documentation, production of procedures stemming from the gap analysis, evaluation and selection of the systems completion database, the SCDB, and developing the handover program with operations. The type of commissioning manager required on the project may vary. Depending on the scope, the commissioning manager can be provided by the client company or from the contractor organisation. The commissioning manager representing either organisation may operate on a staff basis or as a consultant. For the consultant manager engaged on a staff basis, there will be different issues and concerns than if engaged on a consultancy basis. In this slide, we can see the matrix of responsibilities with pros and cons for the commissioning manager engaged whether on a staff or consultancy basis and engaged either by the client or the contractor organisation. Pros and cons of the commissioning manager hired from either the contractor organisation or the operator organisation. The commissioning manager engaged by the client or operator organisation on a staff basis, looking at the top left-hand corner of the matrix. On the pro side, the manager should have sufficient authority and should also know the company and its politics, meaning he or she should be able to focus on the scope and not specifically on the contract terms. On the consequences side, there could be experience levels, as we find that many people from operator organisations lack the experience required for a commissioning manager position, and with the lack of experience comes the lack of availability. So, the commissioning manager could be engaged on a consultancy basis from the client or operator organisation. There will be some pros and cons with this relationship as well, as shown in the bottom left-hand corner of the matrix. On the pro side, there would be a wealth of experience available from the number of consultants that can provide this skill set. These people are not usually concerned by the politics. They tend to have greater flexibility and adaptability to the requirements of the project. And on the pro side, they have an ability to focus on the scope and not specifically on the contract terms. The consequences are, however, that that person engaged on a consultancy basis from the client or operator organisation may lack sufficient authority within the organisation. That person may also not have sufficient influence within the company or knowledge of the company or its politics. and therefore may also lack ability to be able to liaise and negotiate effectively with other stakeholders. For the commissioning manager engaged through the contractor organisation on a staff basis, there are pros and cons. On the pros side, the person should have greater focus on the scope and contract. On the consequences side, the person may lack the experience required. He or she may also therefore lack the authority to get things done and to be able to hire the commissioning team. This would lead to a risk of being unable to fulfill the usual duties and responsibilities. And there could be a risk that this person's duties may not extend through the start-up phase till final handover to operations. Finally, the commissioning manager could be employed on a consultancy basis by the contractor organisation. Again, there are pros and cons. There should be a wealth of expertise available. The person would not normally be motivated by politics, should have greater flexibility and adaptability, and would have an ability to focus on scope, not on contract terms. However, there are serious consequences. He or she may not be engaged in time to be effective. Consequently, they may also lack authority to get things done and hire the commissioning team. With this, their scope may not extend through the final handover to operations and startup. Type of commissioning manager by engagement. There are advantages and disadvantages to which organisation supplies the commissioning manager on a staff or consultancy basis. The clear recommendation on this course is that the operating company provide the commissioning manager on a staff basis, and that the operating company also provide a deputy commissioning manager on a consultancy basis. Furthermore, that there is a split in responsibility of commissioning between the client and contractor teams, as shown in the completions pyramid on slide 61. On the completions pyramid slide, I have shown the demarcation of responsibilities for pre-commissioning by the contractor team and commissioning by an operator team. All activities, FAT, mechanical completion, and pre-commissioning, static commissioning, or function testing, would be performed by the contractor team. All activities thereafter would be performed by the operator team. That is to say, all the dynamic commissioning activities and startup and performance testing through to final handover to operations.